In this lecture, we'll learn about the Dropdown component. Dropdowns are contextual overlays that can be toggled to show a list of links. Dropdowns are made by wrapping a toggle link or button and the dropdown menu in a dropdown container. First, we'll create the dropdown container, which is a div tag with the class dropdown. Inside this, we'll first create a toggle button. This is done by using the button tag with a type attribute with the value button and some button classes. We'll use btn and btn secondary, and we'll give the button the text dropdown. To turn this button into a toggle button for a dropdown component, we also need to add the class dropdown toggle, the IDE dropdown, the data toggle attribute with the value dropdown, the area has pop-up attribute with the value true, and the area expanded attribute with the value false. Now we'll create our drop-down menu. This can be a list of links or buttons, but in both cases they don't have to be structured like an unordered or ordered list. We'll create a div tag with the class drop-down menu and the area labeled by attribute with the value dropdown. This is referring to the ID of our toggle button. Inside this div, we'll make an anchor tag with an empty href attribute, the class dropdown item, and the text first item. We'll duplicate this twice and change the text of the second link to second item and the text of the third link to third item. Now let's see this in the browser. As mentioned previously, we can also use a link to toggle the dropdown. To do this, we'll change the button tag to an anchor tag, remove the type attribute, and add an empty href attribute. We can also use a list of buttons instead of links inside our drop-down menu. Let's change the anchor tags to button tags. Remove the href attribute and add the type attribute with the value button. When we look at it in the browser again, we'll see the exact same behavior and style. Let's revert back to our previous example with a toggle button and links in the drop-down menu. We can make a drop-down with a small toggle button by adding the class btn sm as we usually would on buttons. Let's see it in the browser. In the same way, we can make it large by using the class btn-lg. Let's have another look. It's possible to create a split button drop-down, where the button will be in button group instead. To make this, we'll first change the class of the container to btn group. We will then add a regular button before our current button. We'll make a button tag with a type attribute with the value button, the classes btn and btn secondary, and the text dropdown. Our button from before will also get the class Dropdown toggle split, and we'll wrap the text in a span tag with the class SR only and change the text to toggle dropdown. Let's see this in the browser. When we click the left button, nothing happens, but when we click the right button, the dropdown will toggle. Let's revert back to our code from before. Instead of a drop-down, we can also create a drop-up where the drop-down menu will appear above the toggle button. This is done simply by adding the class drop-up to the container div. Let's see this in the browser. To make the drop-down menu right-aligned, we can change the drop-up class from before to btn group, and add the class drop-down menu right to the drop-down menu container. Let's take another look. Let's revert back to the code for a regular drop-down. We can add a header to our drop-down menu simply by adding a heading tag as the first element with the class drop-down header. We'll give it the text drop-down header. We can add a menu divider to our drop-down menu by adding an empty div tag with the class drop-down divider. Finally, we can make a drop-down item appear as disabled by adding the class disabled to it. Let's see these three features in the browser. We can see the header, the menu divider, and the disabled item. We have now learned how to create a drop-down component to show a list of links. Go on and continue with the coding exercise, which will help you learn the correct structure for this component. In the next lecture, we'll learn how to create and use form components.